McKenna.
And I'm Cass. And this is Call You in 5.
Cass, why don't you kick us off with a weekly update?
Oh man, well, this is my busy season for work, as you know. And so if you follow my personal Instagram, Little Cass, you know that I've been in like 4 states already in August. 5 states already in August.
Yeah.
Oregon for family, Missouri, Arizona, Florida, and then obviously Denver.
Yeah.
But Missouri, Arizona, and Florida, all for work. I am a keynote speaker on college campuses and specifically with sorority women, and it's recruitment season, y'all. So I am a busy bee, which is so fun. I am home all summer. I'm in Denver all summer, anticipating this time. And so I literally leave in 2 days, right after this episode airs, to go to 5 more states this week. So it's with you, which is the best. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I know, I'm excited too. It'll be fun to it's always fun when you're real life friends, for lack of a better word, see you in your element at work, you know? You do TikTok, so it's different. I feel like I'm in some of your work life, you know?
Yes.
Or I second shoot with you for photography, so I feel like I get to see you in your element. But sorority life's so niche. It's just really fun.
It is
to bring
very
people
niche
into that. So
it is very niche, and every time I see one of your TikTok videos, which I actually don't see them very often because I was not in a sorority, so they don't come up on my FYP unless I'm on Friends or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
But when I do see them, if I see your comments or anything, everybody, it's just very niched, in a close knit community.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you're probably seeing the ones on your FYP that are blowing up and are showing up on people who weren't fraternity and sorority life, don't have that background. So those are the ones too, where everybody's weighing in on some stereotype of Greek life. So yeah, it's I'm actually having a lot of fun, and my family was in town this week for a golf tournament, and so it's been so busy, but I am I love to travel. I've got the TSA pre-check. I've got the very well organized luggage. We'll have to do a travel episode soon because I have all the tips, but I just love this time of year. So how about you? What's new with you?
Well, Joey is out of town right now, and he's in California with his brothers on a golf trip, and he's been there for 2 days, and he comes back late tomorrow night. And so it's just been me solo parenting for the last few days, which I know a lot of parents have to do that on the daily, and I know that I'm very blessed to not have to do that on the daily, but it has been exhausting keeping her entertained all day and also keeping the house clean and all of the household tasks that usually Joey helps me out with.
Sure.
So it's just been a little exhausting, but luckily I finished all of the work stuff that I had to do this weekend earlier so that I could just be present with her for this whole week and just not have to stress. I feel when I'm with her and I have other things over my head, that is when I am shorter, my patience are shorter with her and stuff like that. So the fact that I've had nothing, we've just been enjoying this weekend, and it's been really fun.
I love that. It's what is Foxy? It's so hard to actually enjoy or play. Or for me, it's I feel the same way with friendships. It's hard for me to be present with a friend over coffee when in the back of my head I'm
to-do list.
That TikTok has to get done by 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Or I have to meet this deadline for a client by 10 tomorrow, and this project's going to take me so long. Why am I sitting here at coffee? But it's no, you want to. You want to be present with your kids. You want to be present with your friends. But it's hard when you've got those things to me.
For sure.
Good for you.
Yeah, so it was nice to do that. And then I'll have to do it all again, catch up before we leave town on Wednesday.
Totally.
So when Joey gets back, I'll work Tuesday and get caught up.
That's perfect. I'm going to San Diego will be so much fun. I think it's funny that we launched the podcast without actually telling people why we even know each other or how we became friends. And so this is going to be a fun episode, I think, to just enlighten all of the new friends that we get to make through the podcast about how we became friends. And honestly, my hope is really encourage anyone who's trying to make friends in a new city that it's possible, and they don't need to be shallow friendships. They don't have to be surface level. You can actually find real deep, relatable relationships, even when you've got no background in a city. So, okay, what do you remember about how we became friends? How would you tell the story of how we became friends?
Well, okay, so this was 3.5 years ago. I remember moving here and I was fresh. We had just moved here. I think we had just closed on our house even. It was COVID. That
no,
whole
it was
time?
before you. Well,
was
anyways,
it before?
You told the
story.
Was
it before?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Oh, yeah, because I was living in Highlands Ranch.
You were living with your in-laws.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yes, I remember that because I remember that we met at Bar 3 and I was becoming an instructor there. And then I don't remember how it happened, but somehow we went out to like brunch at Snooze.
Yeah.
And we just chatted and we had like a ton in common. So that's what I really remember. And plus you're like so bubbly and like easy to talk to. So I just remember that it was pretty quick. I felt like that we became friends.
Totally.
That's what I remember. I don't know. What do you remember?
Well, this is so funny. So I worked front desk at Bar 3 and McKenna had like, you had been an instructor before in Corvallis. And so it was like an easy transition for you to like get back involved with that company culture. And I remember, this is like the first time I remember seeing your name. I remember your name popping up on a class list as like a freebie. And I was like, who is this girl that's getting a free class? Like, and you were like on some kind of like staff package, but I'm like, I feel like I would know if we had a new staff member. Like, who is this girl? And you like show up and you're like so energetic. And I think we took a class together because like I would like open the studio, check everybody in, and once class got started, I'd like sneak in during warm up and like take. And I remember taking, you were like so dynamic. And I think Stephanie is like the one who like orchestrated our friendship really. She was kind of like the mastermind. Yeah. She was like, you both just moved here and the people that you're like dating or married to like are very well rooted here, but neither of you are. Yeah. But you have this like common tie of like fitness and entrepreneurship. You should be friends. So I remember.
That's so funny. I think she did.
I remember her introducing us.
Yeah, I think she did kind of make that happen.
So what's funny is like this was like fresh before COVID, like right before COVID.
Yeah.
I remember going to brunch with you, and like the thing that I remember that I was so encouraged by, I think this was like early February when we got breakfast because I had just finished my website for her sorority journey.
I remember that.
Her sorority journey hadn't even launched yet, but I'd quit my job like 2 months before, and you were so encouraging, like, yes, you can do it. And I'm like, this girl doesn't even know me, and she's like believing that I can be an entrepreneur. And so it's so funny to me that you like saw you literally see my whole entrepreneurial journey.
Oh my gosh.
And you were like, you figured out the entrepreneurial thing and like how to balance that with your relationship, which was what I was trying to do at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just felt so encouraged. And I don't know if you remember this, but it was right after my birthday. It was like March. It had to be 6th or 7th because we were both like house hunting at the time. Like you and your husband and me and my boyfriend were like both trying to buy at the same time. And I just remember like having this conversation about the housing market because like we were spending every spare moment like going and looking at houses. And we'd like done this photo shoot. You were like, I'm like trying to like build my portfolio.
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember that?
Yes, it was like
over
at South Valley.
Oh. But yeah, South Valley.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like over like super west. And I just remember like you being so excited like to help build your portfolio in Colorado. And I'm like, this girl wants to take photos of me. This is great. And it was like all those photos that we took that day were like at a pretty essential part of like my brand development. And we used them on the website and on the launch. And little did we know that like I remember talking to you about COVID. Like that day we were like, it's just gonna blow over. It's like not gonna be that big of a deal. And then sure enough, like 2 weeks later, we were like all shut down.
In lockdown. Yeah. I do. Wow, you have so much better memory than me. For some reason, I have the worst memory. Absolutely the worst memory.
I don't think that's true, but it's like I think we just remember different details.
Yeah. No, that was all of it's coming back to me though with you saying that. And we both closed like right during the thick of COVID, you know?
Because we closed, I think it was like April 6th.
I don't remember when we closed, but it was the week of COVID. We placed an offer on this house and got it accepted.
I think you closed like 3 weeks after us.
Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But I remember we placed an offer the first week of lockdown on this because nobody was placing offers. And that's how we got this one under asking price, which every other house was like above asking price.
Yeah.
So I do remember that. I know it was a crazy time.
It was a crazy time. But I think what was so fun about meeting you in that season, apart from like everyone thinking we're sisters, which like I like continue to think is so sweet, is we both grew up in the same hometown. Yeah. We like both have a love of fitness. We both have like this entrepreneurial like mindset. Like our faith is like both really important to us, and we've like navigated living in a city that we like ultimately moved to for someone else.
Yeah. For a guy.
Yeah. And I mean that like our stories about how that all transpired is totally another episode. But I will like forever be thankful for like even just like the shared season that we were in that time, and like the vulnerability you had to like go out of your way to like get to know someone new. Even though you didn't like even end up staying at bar 3 very long.
No, I didn't. I don't even. I stayed there through like the COVID thing of lockdown, but then when we came back, it just didn't work. It just didn't work because we had closed on this house and all of that. But I still do love bar 3. I wish we had one down here because I'd go take classes.
I know. You know? And I think what's sweet about that is like sometimes the reason we like connect with people don't continue to be like part of our lives, even though the people do. And I'm like, and like the inverse is true sometimes too. Like in my story, it's like I moved here for a guy who's no longer a part of my life, but like I still live in Colorado, and like that's such a blessing. And you have
so many good things going for you here too.
Yeah. So I think it's cool sometimes we can both with like friendships, relationships, like big decisions in our life, we can get like so hung up on the story of it all that it's hard to like even in our friendship, it's like hard to let go sometimes of like common bonds because we think like there's like a fear that the convenience associated with both going to that same thing is like the reason we were friends. And I do think that's like a telling sign of friendship when friendships change with like points of convenience. But like that's also how you like find your true friend. That's how you find your true friends is by like removing some of those layers of convenience.
Yes.
And like seeing the depth of it.
Yes, and seeing who's still there, like after things change and stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I know like you've also done a lot over the last 3 years to be like super like well-rooted and networked in Denver. What were like some of the things you did that like helped you feel really established in Denver, the greater Denver area? And like what, and like from that, like what advice would you have for someone who's like moving to a new city and like trying to do what we basically figured out kind of the hard way after 3 years?
So I've actually done this a couple times. Actually 3 times I moved to a new city, and I made some list of things that I've done because I moved to Corvallis first, which is like an hour and a half south of Portland. So it wasn't like a huge move. I still had my family close by. But then after that, I moved to Utah. I moved to Highlands, Utah, and then Provo, Utah. But I kind of count that as like the same type of thing. And then I moved out here.
Yeah.
And San Diego. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So like 4 places. San Diego was 3 months. So it wasn't too long. But I feel like I've had to make new friends a lot.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm not extroverted. I'm not somebody that is like outgoing.
Which I feel like people would not expect.
No.
Like from your, not like, not to downplay like who you are as a holistic person, but like from your personality, like for even in your spin classes or TikTok, like I'm sure people would think like you always have a lot to say. You're super extroverted. So that's funny.
Right. Everybody thinks that I'm very outgoing and extroverted, and then they meet me and I'm a little bit more quiet, I think, and I like to listen more. But it was funny because Stephanie, I think I had this conversation with Stephanie at one point, that a lot of people who are introverted are drawn to be instructors at Bar 3. I don't know if she mentioned that.
No, but, she hasn't said that to me.
I've also, maybe it was also potentially Robin, who I used to teach for at another Bar 3, who said that too. We've had a lot of those conversations because all of the instructors I used to teach with in Corvallis were all very introverted.
Funny.
But we all had a lot in common, and it was funny because we wanted to teach, and I don't know. It's funny how that happens.
Yeah.
But if you're moving to a new state, I think the most important thing is to, obviously you need to get out of your house, right? Like you're not going to meet anybody if you're just in an isolated bubble, which can be hard to meet new friends when you're going out and getting out of your comfort zone. It can be hard to be yourself too at the same time.
Totally.
But going out to eat on your own, going out to your favorite fitness studio, going out to doing your normal day things out and about, you can meet a lot of people. And I think that it's super empowering and helps with confidence levels if you're out doing things on your own.
Yeah.
And, like attending network events or attending fitness classes, which can be very intimidating to go to a fitness class for the first time, especially if you're not somebody that goes to a lot of fitness classes. It can be kind of scary.
Yeah.
But most of the friends that I've made here in the greater Denver area come from fitness. Like, come from whether they have been clients, members, instructors, and stuff like that. I don't...
Yeah. It's funny because I think in my experience too, so I've moved twice now. I moved from Portland to Arizona for college, and then I moved from Arizona here. But like in my like 5th year in Arizona, I wasn't really in Arizona. I was traveling full time for my sorority. And I think the one thing that I learned, kind of like you got to get out of your house. And I think that like requires the boldness to like do the things that you love to do, to like apply yourself to the areas that you're passionate by yourself.
Yeah.
Which is so hard, especially like, I don't know, like I grew up dancing, which like you're always on a team when you're dancing, right? You're like, or like you're a part of like a bigger class, or I mean, unless you're like in privates or whatever. And I remember like going to like fitness dance like classes in college. It's like, well, I don't know anyone, but I made a ton of friends through that. And like same thing, I was working front desk at Bar 3 in Arizona before I met the guy that I moved here for. And the first thing I did, like before I was even living here full time, I found a Bar 3. I'm like, that's how I found our Bar 3. Is I was just like, okay, where's the, like, I literally, my owner from Bar 3 Scottsdale sent an email to the Denver owners and was like, hey, trying to get this girl plugged in. And I just like literally showed up there by myself.
Yeah.
Like, and I borrowed my boyfriend's car, and I like drove.
Well, it's kind of like your connection away from home.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think like, so those are the, like, I found a fitness studio and I found a church, which is like another vulnerable thing to do by yourself. But like, I think when you put yourself in situations where you can connect with other like-minded people, because the people who are showing up to the things, the places that you're drawn to, obviously like the same things you do. Or like the same kinds of people, like friends that you'll probably be compatible with. The hardest part, in my opinion, is not making friends, it's showing up. Mm-hmm. It's just like getting yourself there, because it can feel so vulnerable to be there by yourself. So I love that. Like I think the getting out of the house part is the hardest, because it can feel safe, especially like if you moved, like there's a lot of different reasons people move, right? Like from like just being excited about like living in a different place. Like just, I have a friend who just moved to Dallas because she like wanted to see what it was like to live in Dallas. Or other friends that like move for jobs, or obviously relationships, or some people like move back close to home, but like their whole friend group dynamic is changed because life changes. I think there's a lot of different reasons that you move, but like the thing that's in common between all of them is like being vulnerable and like getting outside of your comfort zone, I feel like.
Right. And along those lines, like getting out and doing the things that you already know you love doing. You're going to meet people that like the same thing. But if you don't meet people and you're out doing something that you like, I think a lot of people are insecure about, oh, I don't want to go out to eat by myself. I don't want to go to a fitness class by myself because I don't want people to think that, I don't know what, people are just afraid of what others are going to think of them being there by themselves. But I can guarantee that nobody is probably even thinking about that. And if they notice you there by yourself, they're going to think, wow, that's really cool. It's going to come off as confident, in my opinion, you know?
Totally. And I like want to be friends with those people. You know, I'm like, wow, you're cool. And I mean, I think we might have talked about this last week too, like how it's so much more important to be interested than interesting.
Yes.
And I think like you have that opportunity to be interested in other people when you're there by yourself, right? Like you've got nothing to prove. Like just ask other people questions. If it's like your barista or like the bartender wherever you're like going out to eat by yourself, you know?
Yeah.
It's just such a sweet opportunity to get to know people. Because I think about like kids, you know, like obviously, you know, like kids when they go to kindergarten are like nervous, but even like on the playground, you know, like you see kids like go out of their way to like make friends.
Yes.
And like so create games. And it's so easy because there's like that
they're not worried about what others are thinking. They're not in their head about anything. They're just being raw, you know, they're just being themselves.
And like somewhere between that time, we like have this like inhibition to like be vulnerable and like, I don't know, have like be a little more fearless and like not care so much what other people think. And I don't know, I think it's important to channel some of that like childlike curiosity and like liberation to just like get to know people and like be in community with them. Because there's just too many people in our world who, like, are sizing one another up to be friends with the right people or to be friends with, like, people with status or whatever. It's like, no, just, like, create real relationships. That's what matters most. That's, like, where real, deep relationships are rooted.
Right. There's actually two things I want to add to that, because I did have that on my list of, like, you have to be a friend in order to get a friend. Like, you have to be interested, like you said. Yeah. It's really hard to be friends with people who are just talking about themselves and what they did. Yeah. Like you said, be interested and be a friend or get to know people. And the other thing I wanted to say is, oftentimes we don't want to be the person, like, if you wave to somebody that you kind of know or wave, we're, like, afraid that they're not going to wave back. Mm-hmm. But I would rather be the person that waved or asked questions or engaged than the person who ignored or pretended like they didn't see them. So, like, even if you're asking questions or, like, talking to people or being interested in their life and they're just not engaging back, I would rather be that person who is engaging. Yeah. You know?
And I think, too, that's, like, where some of your confidence can be found as well. It's like, when you're a confident person, you wave, you initiate conversation, and confidence is so attractive.
It is.
You know, like, not even just, like, for dating, like, but if you're single and trying to, like, find someone, your confidence might be intimidating for sure, but it won't be intimidating to the right person. I'm, like, a big proponent of that. But also, like, we are attracted to confident, interested people, right? Like, there's this girl, I was talking to a friend about her today, who is notorious for asking good questions. Mm-hmm. Like, she is known for that. Like, she is known for making you feel like a rock star. And I don't know, it's like kind of how you made me feel when I first moved out here, like, at Snooze. You know, like, we were talking about, like, what you did as a business, and you're like, I want to help you with that. Like, I believe in what you're doing. Like, do you want to, like, meet up and take photos? Which, little did I know, was going to become, like, a hallmark element of our friendship, right?
That's
like,
so funny. I know, we do that a lot still to this day. And we will do that in San Diego, take pictures.
I know. And every time, I love it, too, because every time we take photos together, we're like, why don't we do this more often?
I know.
It's so much fun. But I think, like, when you make someone feel amazing, like, I learned this in sorority recruitment, but the person who talks the most in a conversation always leaves feeling better about the conversation. So if you create a space where someone can, like, talk a lot and share a lot about themselves and be receptive, I believe in balanced friendship, don't get me wrong. But so if, like, that person isn't, like, reciprocating, that's something you can, like, not like they owe you the reciprocation, but, like, it's just something you can, like, keep in mind. It's like, well, this might not be a super balanced friendship, so maybe I, like, invest less time in it. But I think it's important, especially as you're getting to know people. Like, I don't know. First impressions are one thing, but, like, the lasting impression of how you make people feel is so much more important than, like, what they... Like, that's what they remember you for. It's not, like, how you look or... I don't know, that you showed up there alone. It's how you made them feel.
Right. People are going to... I actually think about that in business, too, all the time. At a wedding, when I'm shooting a wedding, obviously I want to deliver beautiful photos. Yeah. But, like, the feeling that the bride has on that day and how I help her feel a certain way, that's what she's going to remember forever. And how she feels the day of, that's how she's going to see the photos. Yeah. But that's, like, on a completely different business topic. But same thing with, like, people, you know, how you make them feel is how they're going to remember you. But... another thing to add is, you know who's a really good conversationalist? Joey. So
he is.
He really is. And actually, when we were
He better listen, Joey. Tune in.
He really is. And actually, he was giving me, like, 101 lessons. I think back, not that anything I was saying to you was, like, fake or forced or anything like that, but, like, I feel like since we started getting married, Joey is really good at, like, helping me with my conversational skills, because I am very introverted. I'm very quiet. I like to just listen. But the thing is, you want to, like, get people talking. And actually, Joey taught me a ton of the stuff that I still use to this day on, like, meeting people and, like, making friends. But a lot of it is, like, what you were saying, just, like, asking good questions, like, engaging in their interests and stuff like that. And not that it should be fake, like, right. But don't be...
Like, ask questions that you actually care about the answer
skill.
for.
It's just a skill, you know, like, that you get better at. I don't know.
He is good at asking questions. It's funny, like, when I was over here last... I mean, we don't need to talk about, like, the topic of the questions, but he's just, like... He is good at, like...
He is.
Getting people talking.
He'll probably be mad at me for saying this, on air, but when we were dating, so he said when we were dating, he would come prepared to the dates, which this could be like in a dating episode in the future, but actually Joey'd be a good one to like
have as a guest.
Yeah, on like dating questions. He was really good at dating, and he would like come prepared with questions that he was going to ask me beforehand. So then he was really good at keeping the conversation going because he came prepared with like, you know, things that I had told him last time. Like, oh, I'm going to Hawaii and I'm doing this. He came prepared and remembered those things that I was doing and was like, how was Hawaii? What did you and your family end up doing? You and your sisters, you know, he was so good at that. And it also made me like really like him a whole lot more because I felt like he was actually engaging in what I was saying and listening.
Totally. And that's so applicable to friendships, right? Especially like when you move to a new city and you're trying to keep up with friends who are like virtual. Yes. And I feel like this is also a whole nother episode. I feel like I was an expert at virtual relationship building pre-COVID. Like I just had to figure out how to do that when I was traveling so much before I like hunkered down in Denver when the country shut down. And I just remember like how important it was that I like remembered the things going on in my friends' lives. And it's important to keep those up to like on top of your mind so that you can like remember the big moments. I'm not talking about like just their birthday, but it's like if they tell you that like they've got this interview coming up because they're applying for a new job, like ask them how it went. Like preferably on the day they interview. Or like or if their family's coming to town, like the day they leave, ask them how it went. You know, those kinds of things like those go a long way with friends, not just people you're trying to marry.
Right. And even if you're not like super good friends with, like you're trying to make friends in a city and you are like, say we went out to lunch and I don't know, like you say that you're starting your business and stuff like that. I don't think that I did this, but like texting you after you launch your website, like that's how you can make friends. Yeah. Even if you're not that close with somebody, that's how you can nurture a friendship and it can become more because it is really hard in your 20s to make friends. Especially because, like you were saying, as a child, we have, like, no filter, and we're just ourselves authentically, so it's easier to make friends when you're younger. Totally, and then they just, like, follow you through your life. So it's harder in your 20s to make friends because we have all these filters on.
Yeah, I was even thinking about that. Like, part of what I talk about in my keynote is, like, how vulnerable I felt when I, like, first went to college. I, like, didn't have any friends, and, like, the same thing happened when my relationship ended, and I was, like, in this city that I moved to for someone else, and I, like, didn't feel, like, I worked pretty hard in that relationship to, like, be well-connected, like, to community. But it was still, like, I still felt, like, really isolated afterwards. And it's funny because I have thought about that. Even, like, yes, there's obviously a huge difference between us being, like, kids on the playground to now. But I even think, like, between college and now, there's just, like, something about, like, your, like, late teens, early 20s that, like, makes it feel like it's a lot easier to make friends than now. Just because, like, and obviously, like, even now we're, like, older than we were. Like, we're a little bit older, and so we, like, are coming at it from a different perspective than we were, like, 3.5 years ago. But I do feel like there is even that difference between, like, well, when you go to college, there's a different, like, environment that you're in where it's, like, everybody's trying to make friends versus, like, you move to a new city and it's, like, well, some people have lived here forever and have, like, high school, childhood friends that they're, like, college friends that they're holding on to. Or, like, people are making friends at their work, and when you're, like, entrepreneurial and work from home, it's like,
how are you going to meet people? Yeah.
It's, like, great. And even people who, like, do work for a company, but, like, work remote, you know, it's just, like, or even if you, like, set a boundary in your life that you're not going to be, like, besties with your coworkers, that's also super respectful. Like, that's fine, too. Right. So, respectable.
Yeah.
There's just, like, a lot of different categories you can find yourself in, but I do think putting yourself out there when you're older, like mid-20s to like 30s, is like there's a confidence and like also like a growth mindset. I think that comes with that too. Like the willingness to like continue to learn about people and grow and like how like I think it's like so beautiful when you like have the emotional maturity and even like humility to like make friends or like go out of your way and like do the things that you love to do and attract the kind of people who also love the same kinds of things. That's a growth, that's a sign of growth mindset, right? And like always willing to learn, always learning to grow. And I think that's good, not just in relationships, but in like all facets of life, but can even benefit and further enhance the relationships that you have had for a long time that just might not be like as in close proximity, you know?
Yeah. And not to keep like beating a dead horse, but I actually taught a lesson last week in church on Sunday where I was teaching the girls about just things you encounter and making friends and feeling less alone in high school. And I actually was talking about a habit, like thought process that I could relate to for sure, but it was thoughts, feelings, behaviors. So the example that I used was if you're at school, because these are high schoolers that I was talking to, but if you're at school and your like best friend walks by you in the hall, bumps into you, but keeps going and doesn't say anything, what are you going to think? Like, what are your initial thoughts, right? So there's something that happens to you, your thoughts are probably going to think, why is she mad at me? Why is she upset? What's going on? And your behavior, what did I do? And your behavior is going to be not sitting by her at lunch. And then she's going to think, what did I do if the situation isn't what you assumed it was, if that makes sense? And so then the separation of friends can happen or like whatever. This doesn't even have to be like with your friends, just like it's important to realize that everybody is going through something. And so if somebody cuts you off while they're driving, or if you're out to get a coffee and you try to make conversation and somebody's not reciprocating as much as you would like and makes you feel kind of maybe dumb for asking questions or whatever it may be, that's going to affect your behavior. But it's important to come back to the initial thought of what happened. And your thought could be totally different. Like coming back to that example of your friend walking by you in the hallway, say brushes your shoulder, bumps your shoulder, keeps walking, doesn't say anything. If you thought, oh, she must be having a bad day. I wonder what's wrong. I wonder what's going on. Like I need to ask her. And then your thoughts are going to be different.
Like empathy.
Yes. Your thoughts are going to be different. And so your behavior, instead of like not sitting by her at lunch, you're going to go sit by her and say, what's going on? Yeah. Like, how can I help? What's wrong?
And I think that's like, go ahead.
No, that's all I was going to say. I mean,
I just think like what you just outlined is like what we assume about others while we're getting to know them, like really dictates the future of our friendship. Like we can assume our way into not being friends with people.
Yes.
Or we could like assume our way into like seeing if there's an opportunity for like closeness and depth of friendship. But I think all of that starts with a posture of like, this isn't personal if this friendship doesn't work out.
Right.
And it's not personal if it continues, right? Like there's things I can control and there's things I can't control. I can control I will control what I can control, and I'm going to like surrender to the things that I can't and move forward. And that's the other big piece of all of this is not every person you meet at a fitness class, not every coffee that you get with that person who you sat next to in church is going to be a lifelong friend. Is going to be someone you make a podcast with in 5 years that we tune into. But I do think like you will never find those people if you don't try.
And if you don't put yourself out there. And everybody is feeling the way you're feeling. Like everybody wants more friends. Everybody sometimes feels lonely. Everybody sometimes feels insecure. Sometimes feels like they left the house in an outfit they don't actually like. Everybody feels that way, or feels like they don't want to be the only one eating alone at a restaurant. Everybody feels like that, but it's not weird. It's not something you should be embarrassed of.
And I also think it's okay if you don't feel like you can put yourself out there like every day of the week, or maybe even like every week of the month. It's okay if you start small and say like, this month I'm going to go to 3 fitness classes, or I'm going to do like 2 hobbies, or whatever your hobbies are, whatever your interests are. Like I'm going to give myself like 4 shots to like put myself out there this month. That's okay. Like just do what you can handle. Allow yourself like the grace, but also challenge yourself.
Yeah. I think that was all really good stuff.
Yeah, me too. Do you want to like wrap us up?
Yeah. Well, you guys, if you're tuning in, we love having you here, and we're so thankful that you are joining us on our podcast. We post every single Tuesday, and we would appreciate any reviews that you want to leave us on our Apple Podcast or Spotify. You can leave reviews on Spotify.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So if you could leave us a review, it helps us rank higher and get seen, and hopefully make this like more than just a thing we're trying to, I don't know, just a thing that we're trying to do. Hopefully we can make this bigger, and yeah.
And I guess too, like in the same way that we value each other's friendship, we value like our future friendship with you. So share this with your friends and like help us grow this community. See you next Tuesday.
Yes. Bye.
You're like a summer in June. Amongst the stars, you're